Hey there guys, this is Jack over at Hi Redbird, and today's video is a discussion between Robin of the Leather Elves and Dani, the curator of birds and animal training at Southwick Zoo. Now this discussion is one of the live streams that we have done on the Leather Elves Facebook page. We always do them every Friday at 7 p.m. So if you would like to go over to the Leather Elves on Facebook, like that page so you don't miss out. This conversation is a continuation of a topic we covered before with enrichment. So before we covered categorizing enrichment, today's discussion covers how to assess enrichment and how to provide a varied enrichment schedule. Now that is going to change depending on the size of your collection and the time you have available to commit to that. So we do cover a variety of different ways that you can schedule enrichment with variety in mind, that you can apply that to your unique set of circumstances. So if that is something you want to make sure to see, make sure to stick around because that's going to be coming up right after this.
Hi, everybody, and welcome to Friday Flock Talk. I'm Robin Sullivan, and I'm here with Jack Pine. Hey, Jack, how's it going? What should I not ask, right? Oh, it's been a rough week for Jack.
Yeah, for anyone who is not aware, I am in Houston, which apparently decided it was going to have a mini ice age this week. So there's been quite a lot to deal with that. So I don't even know how to begin to explain what has happened in the 2.5 years since I saw you last week.
I kind of think I have some idea. And honestly, Jack, all of us who are not in Texas and in Houston are really pulling for you guys. And if, for the people who are listening, if anybody is able to listen from our Texas audience, I really want to say thank you for making this effort. And hopefully we can do something, make you feel a little positive for at least an hour this week. So last week, we talked about categories and things like that. And I think, pretty much everybody got the idea that we want to create an enrichment program. We want to break it down into categories, do some scheduling, and see how that goes. So Diane's here. Hey, Diane. Yeah, it is good to see Jack, and good that Jack is smiling. This is a positive thing. So we just want to remind you that we have a trivia question tonight with a fantastic prize. Dun dun dun. And Jack, is there anything I need to let people know before we get really rolling?
Well, so we always get started with the same announcements, just because, in case anyone has forgotten if they've lived 2.5 years in the last week, like I have, or, anything like that. Don't forget that we have our Friday Night Flock Talks every single Friday at 7 p.m. So you want to make sure that you like the Leather Elves page on Facebook so you don't miss out. You want the opportunity to interact with us directly. You can ask any questions. If you do miss out on a session, you can go to the that way. There we go. Yeah. The Hi Redbird YouTube page, and all of our recorded sessions are going to be there as well. So if you need listening for your morning commute, you can go ahead, pull up that playlist, listen to those as you're going. If you guys would like to participate in discussions as well, we do have the Hi Redbird YouTube page as well, or not YouTube page, Facebook page, that one. So you guys can go like Hi Redbird on Facebook so you can participate in any of the ongoing discussions that we have as well. But thank you guys so much for being here each and every week. I cannot tell you how much me and Robin have talked about how meaningful it is to us that you guys come on every week and you have questions, but when other people have questions, you also have answers. So it's creating this community of people that are just wanting to help each other. And I really cannot tell you guys, thank you so much for being a part of that.
Yeah, I just want to echo what Jack said. It really, last week, after last week, I really felt energized. I mean, it's cold here in New Hampshire too, but it's just constant cold and it gets old really quickly. And I just, it's something exciting on Friday nights, which is kind of a commentary on my life. But no, seriously, we listening to you all or watching the comments that you all are making and how you're interacting with one another is kind of like my goal. And Jack and I, the goal that we're setting for this, and we're really excited that you're all doing this with us. So thank you again for being here and for bringing friends. And, as we grow, it gets even more exciting. So without further ado, I want to introduce you all to a special guest that we have tonight. We are lucky enough tonight to have with us Dani Poirier Larson, and it's tough for me to get that out because it's Dani Poirier. And Dani is the curator of birds in training at Southwick Zoo in Mendon. I had the opportunity to meet Dani through International Association of Avian Trainers and Educators. Dani is one of the most enthusiastic zookeepers, trainers that I have ever met. So welcome, Dani. Thank you for joining us.
Oh my gosh, thank you so much for having me. And I feel so humbled to hear you say that, Robin, because I look up to you so much. So I really appreciate your kind words.
Oh, well, thank you. Southwick Zoo is I grew up going to Southwick Zoo, and it was really, it was a small zoo, and I've watched it evolve over time. And I know that you, Dani, have had something to do with that evolution.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, Southwick's, like you mentioned, we've been around for a long time, and it's a family-run facility. We're a privately run facility, and we are ZAA accredited, and we kind of on our own have built some pretty significantly high standards over the years for our animals and for our employees. And we really have grown, and it's been an honor to be a part of that growth. And we have an amazing team of the family members are just so involved, and they really inspire their staff and their zookeepers to be a part of that upward progress. And it has done wonders really for our animals, and we're so proud of that.
Very cool. So what is it? I mean, Jack works at a small facility as well. And I think you guys, in knowing both of you separately, you both do a lot of the same types of things. And it's a lot of improvisation. It's a lot of recycling. So Dani, what does the curator of birds and training at Southwick Zoo do?
That's like a really loaded question because I do a lot. Yeah, a little bit of everything. I would say that my main kind of gig is just managing the ambassador bird department. So my department takes care of all the ambassador birds. So the birds whose purpose are for education and outreach, but it's all on site. So we do formal bird presentations during the season, and all of those birds are kind of working towards a specific goal, and that's just to reach our audience and inspire them to love birds and inspire conservation action, raise money for conservation. We're really proud partners of the Bird Endowment and Association Harmonia. We've raised thousands of dollars for them. And I was on the live just a little while ago and then got in touch with Dorothy and got our sponsorship money set in for 2021. So we're proud sponsors already this year, and that's been amazing. So yeah, we're all about conservation, education. My job in particular, there's lots of management of people and birds involved, lots of training, and the thing we're talking about tonight, enrichment. We're really passionate about our enrichment program as well. So I get the opportunity to manage humans, birds, and our audience are the people that we're trying to reach, and it's amazing.
Very cool. So, Jack, I mean, this sounds a lot like what you do at the farm as well.
Yeah, I think you're going to see a lot of overlap for smaller facilities. People that work there are going to have to do a lot of different things. And you don't really get the opportunity to, there's not really training wheels. It's like, okay, these are the things that you do and go do them. So, yeah, there is always a lot of not just animal care, but managing people, educational programming. And I will tell you from my experience, it's a very rewarding thing to do, but it is not remotely what I would call an easy thing to do.
No, absolutely not. So I know a little bit about your program, your enrichment program, Dani, at Southwick. I did a consult there and, worked with all the different departments and met with people. So give me an example of, or just give me a brief outline of how your program works and how people who are listening could kind of relate that and modify it to at home.
Yeah, sure. So, well, I think one thing that's really worth mentioning is I went to your workshop last Saturday, and I had asked a question. I was like, I feel a little bit spoiled because I bought one of your boredom boxes, and it had just all these fantastic like toys that, all these wood pieces and ropes, and I felt like kind of fancy a little bit. I was like, oh, because at the zoo, we're so used to using recyclables, which is great because I mean that sends a great conservation message as well. We can, enrich the lives of our animals at the zoo and at home with something as easy as a toilet paper tube. That is literally like the hottest commodity for the birds in the bird department. It's like, oh my God, toilet paper tubes. They will do anything for a toilet paper tube stuffed with paper. So yeah, we do a lot of using those recyclables, and we do a lot of foraging activities for our parrots. And when we get lucky, when we have a little bit of extra funding, we get to buy them more, maybe a little bit more fun things for them. Well, I wouldn't say fun, but different types of things for them, like those rope pieces and those wood toys. But we provide enrichment for the birds every single day, and it is a lot of foraging stuff. And I know we're going to talk a little bit more about the different categories, and we can talk about how we do that for our birds at the zoo as well. But certainly the stuff that we make at the zoo is stuff that people can make for their own birds at home. I mean, like we were talking about last week, boxes, tissue boxes, toilet paper tubes, all of these items that you would normally throw in the recycling bin, throw them in a box, and make sure they're clean, make sure it's a safe product to be using, and create something fun for your bird. And of course there's a little bit of training involved there because not every parrot is going to know exactly what to do with a toilet paper tube, so that's a whole nother thing as well. But yeah, it's very universal. Anybody can do it.
And I think you brought up a really good point. And Jack and I have talked about this before, that there is that learning curve for some of the birds that we work with, and for some of the birds that people have at home. They don't always know exactly what you're looking for when you give them an enrichment item. It may be, they may come up with a completely different use for it than you have. And Jack and I have talked about goal-based enrichment and how do you make sure that that's what's happening. Sometimes there is training involved, and it's not rocket surgery. Look, I'm being mean to him, even though he's had such a rough week. It's
Poor
not
Jack.
rocket science. I know, right? He has to put up with me every Friday. But Jack, don't you agree? Sometimes sometimes you've got to help him out a little bit and to get him to do what you're expecting.
Yeah, and so like there's a couple of things there. One, we've talked at length about modifying things for different birds, trying things for different birds, and even if something doesn't work the first time, um, you know, it's worth trying again. But I think probably the most important aspect there is the notion of goal-based enrichment. So figuring out what you're enriching for and, how you're going to accomplish that. So, Dani, I would ask you, with the birds that you have at your facility, what are you trying to encourage? Are you trying to get them to show natural behaviors, encourage breeding? Like, what's your plan there?
Yeah, I mean, you kind of hit the nail on the head. The biggest thing for us is just to show off natural behaviors. We, of course, want to inspire them to do that, but we also want to inspire our birds to make choices and operate on their environment in a positive way, in a way that's going to be fulfilling for them. We don't want our birds to be bored. We want them to be empowered to make those decisions. And while they're making those decisions, they're naturally going to show off those natural behaviors. And it's great for us to see. It's great for us to see how they interact with items and how we can change things and move things around to get a different response, because it's not always this response we see is not always the one that we maybe intended or had in mind. So it's like we learn from it, and then our birds get this amazing opportunity to just empower themselves and be themselves and not display neophobic behaviors, and they're empowered by their environment, and something good comes from the person, the person giving them that item, they end up developing a strong relationship with. I mean, like I said, our birds will do anything for a toilet paper tube. I've had birds in emergency situations where they get out and I need to get them back, and I'm like, hey, I'm putting toilet paper tubes in your cage, and they're like, oh my God, must get back in my cage. So it's helped us solve a lot of behavior problems too. And the behavior of it, the training of it, it's amazing what enrichment can do. So yeah, helping us problem solve, seeing those natural behaviors, empowering our birds to make choices and having control and choice in their environment. It's all just so important for an animal living in human care. And we really want to see that. So that's the goal.
And I think, I couldn't have put it any better. I mean, that sums up what you really want to get out of enrichment. And I think for anybody that's listening, that's the whole thing right there. We want to build a relationship. We want to help problem solve. We want to encourage choice. We want to empower our birds. We talk so much about animal welfare, and it doesn't just apply in a facility setting. It applies at home too. We have people that are so dedicated to their birds, and there's this I shouldn't say easy, but there's a very creative way to create better animal welfare. And that's what I love. That's why I love enrichment. That was perfect.
Well,
Thank you.
I think the notion of inspiring animals to make their own choices and have options, because I can tell you guys from my experience in the last week, when you take away the options, your attitude deteriorates. I think everybody, as we've been going through this pandemic and they haven't had the same abilities to do things that they've done in the past, they can relate to that as well, that the diminished options result in a deterioration of attitude. So by giving more options, for letting your animals make their choices, I think you definitely see a great improvement in quality of life. So, yay.
It's so true. And I think one of the things, I know, do you guys use a big whiteboard in your sections, Dani, to schedule enrichment? Yeah, okay, that's because I think scheduling helps us avoid repeating, and helps that we are addressing all the different senses and offering those choices, because we've talked before too about getting stuck in the favorites trap, where you get that, and I saw, we have some videos that we can show in a little bit that Dani sent us, and you don't always get the woohoo reaction. Sometimes it's a little slower, it's a little different. And if you give the same thing over and over again, you're not going to get that reaction all the time. So I think having a schedule helps, and it doesn't have to be rigid. I mean, so when you guys do your schedule at the farm, Jack, is it, by category? Is it by specific item? How does it work?
So we randomize it using dice.
Do not.
You assign categories to different numbers, and as you roll the dice, it'll tell you what you're enriching with that day. So it might be browse, it might be a form of dietary enrichment, it might be rotating toys, but it's one of the things that you can do that ensures you're it's going to be statistically very, very unlikely that you're going to do the exact same thing again and again and again. And like I've known people that have done it multiple ways. So they'll have a list of categories and you roll the dice and it's here, I rolled a 2. I have to come up with some type of browse enrichment. But I've also known people that have done categories and then subcategories all on a list. So you roll the dice once, you get a 2, you get browse. Then you roll the dice again and you get a 4. Well, today the browse item that I'm giving out is bamboo. So, there's different ways that you can do it. I would say the most important thing is find a method that works for you and your collection. Because it's definitely very, very different to enrich a single animal versus enriching if you have 5 or 6 animals in your home versus if you have a collection of 200 to 300 animals.
Right. And I think that's a great way to do it. And I promise not to tell anyone that you're running dice at work. But I think, well, but I think I used to call it the Chinese menu approach, one from column A, one from column B. So you couldn't use column A over and over again. There was an A and a B under each category, and then you got to choose what you were going to use, and then you marked it off. And there's software that's available too. I mean, I think it's just professional. Dani, do you guys use the software for your program?
We use animal care software now, but it's pretty new to our facility. So we're working on trying to get some of our enrichment routines more accurately recorded in that system. But right now we're just doing the whole whiteboard and pen and paper thing. So we're working on upgrading that. Yeah.
And that definitely works. I mean, it's, you can do it with a calendar. You can do it on just, we've talked about keeping a notebook on things. And Melissa says, sometimes it's frustrating to do just one. And it's true. If you're just doing one thing over and over again, that can get frustrating. So Julie's going to create a new software called Wheel of Enrichment. I love it. Spin the wheel and what do you get? So it's kind of like, instead of dice, it's roulette. So there's
Julie,
a gambling theme. You want your what?
Showcase Showdown.
You're old. Anyway.
I love this. I love that Wheel of Enrichment. When does that come out? I want that. That sounds amazing.
I think we need to do that. Oh, there's a presentation in the works here. I can see it. Cool. So Julie, we'll credit you on that one. So you can do it if you keep records. You can do it that way. Back in the day, and this is the old school zookeeper. You had a notebook, and you flipped to today we're going to do this. The cranes, and okay, this is what they're getting, and then you flip to the next section, and we're going to do the penguins, and this is what they're getting. And you can do it like that. And if you've just got the one bird, if you're the only caregiver, then you know what you're giving and what you're not giving, but still write it down. Because if you're old like me, you forget things. So, yeah, it happens. What were we talking about? No. So,
yeah.
Dani, did you guys go back?
I was going to say, there's a lot of ways that people can do that. I've worked at facilities where we've done, depending on the day of the week, that's the type of enrichment you give out. So on Mondays, it would be browse. And on Tuesdays, it would be olfactory enrichment. I've worked at facilities where the days of the month correlated to whatever items you were going to give. So on the first of the month, that's going to be a browse day. And by browse, I'm just talking about cuttings of edible plants, which can basically fit into any category. Browse is my favorite type of enrichment. But then you get that rotation because sometimes the first of the month is going to fall on a Tuesday, and sometimes the first of the month will fall on a Friday. And especially if you're in a bigger facility where you have different people working with different animals, then the animals don't know what to expect because, wait, I'm used to those 2 people being here today and I get this, but wait, no, now there's another person here and I'm expecting this, but I'm not getting that. Like, it's all about just giving your birds or giving your animals in general the option to interact with things, but also keeping them mentally stimulated.
Hmm. So Dani, how do you guys do it by category, or how do you schedule things out?
We do work with categories a little bit at the zoo. I would say that pretty much every day we focus on giving our birds an opportunity to get their food that's in a way that's out of the bowl. So I guess that would kind of go for, you know, that would be foraging. And that's really what we focus on the most. I love some of these ideas that are being thrown out, though, about how to kind of randomize it, because I think one of the worst things we can do is to make it predictable for our animals. And, you know, everybody that I work with kind of has their own little unique way of doing things and unique way of giving enrichment. And I try not to, you know, say to my staff, it has to be this way. We have to do it this way. I kind of like that everybody has their own little method and way of doing it. That way there's a little bit of a variety and we lose some of that predictability. We don't want that for our animals. So we do toss around categories in a way that's a little bit more random, like you suggested, but a specific method of randomizing that. So I literally wrote down randomize using dice, A and B categories. We live in Richmond. I'm taking notes right now. I love this. This is awesome.
And I think it's great that, you know, for people who are on their own, or maybe, you know, if you've got it, you're working with a family. So I don't know if Alicia's on tonight, but Alicia is one of our regular listeners, and she and her kids do primarily all of the care for their birds. And maybe you take turns. Maybe, you know, today is Alicia's day to do it, and tomorrow is Aislin's day to do it, and you really just because that would be that style that you talk about. Different people have different styles. And I think, you know, however you choose to set it up in for people at home, I think it's got to work for you. It's just like we've said, you know, listen to the suggestions, take them all in, and then make it work for you. And I think, you know, if it's a calendar, if it's a whiteboard, if it's a notebook, whatever that may be, as long as you're kind of keeping track of it. So if we're going to break it down by categories, we've got some clips. The first one we've got is, if Dani, if you want to tell us what we're seeing here.
Absolutely. This is Russell Crowe, the one and only. He's an African pied crow, and he is just foraging in his outside exhibit for some little chick pieces. So this is actually just a foraging toy that we purchased, I think, through My Safe Bird Store, actually, or something like that. I'm pretty sure it was My Safe Bird Store, though. And he understands that he has to pull the drawers out to get what's inside. I do love this because the drawers are clear, so he can see that clearly there's something in there that he has to work for. So there wasn't too much training involved for him to figure this one out. And he clearly knows how to do it at this point. So it's just a little bit more challenging for him, which I love. And it's also worth mentioning that this happened right after a training session. So he was out in the show arena flying around. And the way I get him in his exhibit for the day is actually with Enrichment, because he gets food for training. He literally wants to go into his cage in his exhibit for Enrichment, because there's that surprise element. He doesn't know exactly what's in there and how he's going to get it. He has to go in there, figure it out. And I love that. So that's that video.
And that in itself shows you that, and Melissa's got the same toy for Zorro, which is pretty cool. Zorro is a black cap Kaik. And I think a lot of times I see on the Facebook pages and stuff, people are having a hard time getting their birds back into their cages at nighttime. Oh, he doesn't want to go in. And this is a perfect example of how enrichment can help you solve that behavior problem. If you get real high value reinforcement by going in, your bird gets really high value reinforcement by going in to use enrichment, then they're going to want to go back in that cage. So that's pretty cool. I love that. The next one we've got is, let's see. Oh, some recycled foraging. There's your toilet paper roll.
Yeah, there's our toilet paper roll and just some small Jello boxes. And I do have to say, I mean, we save these recyclables, like our staff and our interns save them, but we also get like amazing amounts of donations from zoo fans and volunteers. And it's so nice, like I said, first of all, to be using some of these recyclable materials sends a great conservation message. But this is Clyde, our Gende conure, and he just knows that there's treats inside of there, which obviously took a little bit of training. We can't expect that you could put something like this in your bird's cage and they know exactly what to do with it. But over the course of the last few years, he has learned that there's always going to be something really good in there. And so in this scenario in particular, he's definitely foraging for little pieces of walnuts and almonds. Those are his favorite. That's another thing that we do. We always make sure that their favorite snacks are inside these enrichment items, and that's how we keep them high value for them. So that's what we're looking at here.
So Sheila says that she has the drawers for her Goffins, but he's terrified of it. So was Russell at all wary when you first gave it to him?
To be honest, it was so long ago, so I can't really specifically remember with that one item. He does have a tendency to be neophobic with some new objects, so there's a good chance that he might have been. Like I said, there just might have to be some training involved, and we want to be careful that we're not flooding the birds with aversive stimuli. So if he's very clearly afraid of that item, you really want to avoid just placing it in the cage. So you might just have to do some counter conditioning and, either showing the item from really, really far away and reinforcing for calm body language and trying to see if you can eventually move it a little bit closer before even placing it in the cage. That way you're avoiding that aversive fear response, and he's pairing calm behavior with he's getting those positive consequences for being calm around that item, and then maybe you could work up to it that way.
All right, so don't give up, Sheila. We'll keep working with that Goffins, and we'll get him using it. We'll get him being the Russell Crowe of the parrot world.
Yeah.
So do you guys do recyclable enrichment at the farm?
We get a lot of one of my old staff members actually collects newspapers, so she still brings them into us. So we get a ridiculous amount of newspapers that we're able to then reuse as part of our enrichment program. We get a lot of things like cardboard boxes because we have a gift shop on site, so they get items in with their boxes, so we can use things like that. And I would say being able to provide a variety of different things definitely is a really good thing that our birds enjoy. So yeah, we definitely use a wide mix of things.
Cool. All right, Nick, we've got another clip. It's again some foraging. Oh, I love this one, Dani. Tell us about this one.
I love this one too. These are our two hybrid macaws, Pee-wee and Trouble. Pee-wee is the Milligold who just very gracefully fell, and now she's grabbing onto that fire hose. And Trouble is the Catalina macaw who's dangling from one toe at the top there. So yeah, one thing that you can do, because we do string a lot of recyclables on chains and wire, and we don't want that to be boring. So one thing we also like to do is play around with where we place it in the cage or in the exhibit, and we want to place it in a spot, especially for our advanced foragers, in an area where it might be pretty challenging. So you can see that she was kind of dangling from that enrichment. And of course, something like this needs to be supervised, especially when you're first trying it out. And she grabs onto that fire hose, which is an amazing piece of habitat enrichment that we provide for a lot of our birds. It's not sturdy or stable. They have to like really kind of balance on it. And that can be kind of fun too. But yeah, this is just some more recycled materials. They know that there's little pieces of nuts and Zupreme in that paper, and they go crazy for it. They love this stuff.
So I think that brings up a really good, first of all, I love it because I love that they really have to work for it. It's not just about opening something up and finding something. It's the balance. It's the working other muscles that they might not be working otherwise. And did you say there was Zupreme in there?
Yes. So we don't have them only forage for high value reinforcers because, like, going back to that predictability, we don't want it to be predictable, and we don't want to just constantly feed out of the bowl. So some of their primary diet is inside that enrichment as well. They're just looking for food of any sort, and they don't find the zoo cream and go, "Pluh, this is garbage," and throw it out, and then the enrichment is no fun. They love it. They want to find zoo cream in there too, just as much as they want to find a small bit of walnut. So yeah.
I love it. Okay, cool. So this is just foraging, and it's, but it's different in the way it's hung. So part of that, so when we're talking about how we're going to offer things and how we're going to change things up, maybe part of it is where you offer it. Maybe, I mean, this could also have been put in a clump on the ground. It could also have been right on a perch. I mean, it's the degree of difficulty that you want to try, or that you want to get your birds to try. And, so that's enough of a change to it. You don't have to reinvent the wheel every time you offer enrichment. You don't want to get stuck, but at the same time, sometimes placement is enough to change it a little.
We really do we really do placement in a scenario where we feel like we maybe don't have the best supplies. Like if we're running low on supplies and it's not as challenging of a foraging activity than what they're used to or what we could do, that's when we really play around with placement. Okay, this isn't really hard. I don't want it to just take you 2 seconds, so I'm going to make you work for it a little bit more.
There you go. Because you guys, working in facilities, Jack, Dani, both of you have all kinds of free time to just do this, right?
All kinds. Yeah, all kinds.
Because when I work with zoos, one of the things I have to remember is there's a whole spectrum of stuff that has to be done besides enrichment. Even though that's my passion, you've still got to do the other things. And, I know some of the people who listen, on a regular basis have large flocks. And it's not just about, all I have to do all day is just come up with enrichment. They've got jobs, they've got lives, they've got, they've got to clean the cages, they've got to feed, so enrichment isn't always the priority. Just because it's the center of my world doesn't mean it is of everybody else's. So
yeah, absolutely. And like there are days where things come up and we're falling behind, and on an average day we'd have maybe at least an hour to make enrichment for all of the birds, like more complex items like this. But some days that doesn't happen, and that's when we resort to like our food treats and our browse and things that might not take as long, or just putting some shredded paper in their food bowls so that they're not just getting the food directly from the bowl. It can be very simple.
Absolutely. And Jana says she uses a piece of ribbon with her zebra finch. And it's that unstable or unsteady, because branches in the wild are not steady. So I think that's kind of cool. And it's not a zebra fink. Are you sure? Jana's corrected herself. It's a zebra finch. I knew that. See, I'm on the same wavelength. So Nick, what's the next clip we have? I love this.
Yeah, I have to give a shout out to my husband because he helped me make this. I saw this, there was a video of some lorikeets playing with a smaller version that I was tagged in like a million times. And I was like, this is so cool. I have to do this for the parakeets. So I literally just went to Michael's and bought these small wooden dowels. And some of the dowels were like square shaped, not square shaped, but they're kind of rigid on the ends there. So I was able to make the X and just place the dowels. It's almost like a laundry dryer. Like it's kind of what it looks like, the shape. And yeah, you just hang it with this wire, and it's kind of wide. And as it spins, or as the birds land on it, it'll spin. And you can see like some of the parakeets, they know that it's going to spin, like, and they're just having fun. It's like they don't get spooked that it spins and fly away. They fly from I'm watching it right now and just smiling because it's the coolest thing. And visitors loved watching them interact with this too.
I saw this in person when I visited, and I love it. I just think it's the coolest thing. And Jack, I can see in your eyes that this is going to be at the farm, right? It's just really fun. And
I'll be able to build out of PVC once we have PVC pipe and fittings available.
Yeah, you could totally.
We can send it to you from up here, Jack. We'll send the PVC down your way. So I know we have a question from Julie. Julie said, do you feel that doing something edible forage browse for a few days in a row is counterproductive? When I get things that are perishable, I occasionally repeat. No, I don't think so at all, Julie. I mean, you can even change something up. So if you get some produce that's perishable and you want to use it a couple days in a row, just change how you offer it. Maybe one day it's got, a piece of paper over the bowl, or another day it's, offered in a bigger chunk than a chopped form. What do you guys think about this? Dani, Jack?
You want to go first?
Sure. Yeah, so a couple of things to keep in mind there. One, if your enrichment plan is based on I am doing something different every single day, then if you do something 2 days in a row, by nature, that's going to stand out as being different and weird to your animal because they're getting the same thing 2 days in a row. What's up with this? We've talked to you guys about birds are going to view things in incredibly different ways. Animals in general are going to view things in different ways, but we know a lot of the people that watch here are mostly companion parrot owners. So something like papaya is going to be incredibly different if you give a whole papaya versus if you cut it in half, versus if you cut it into cubes, versus if you run it through the shredder attachment of a food processor, versus if you run it through the slicing attachment of a food processor. All of those are going to be completely different items to those birds. They might like some of them more than others. And you can also combine those things. So again, if you're going with a papaya, I would say you can take cubes of papaya and combine that with a stalk of bamboo. Put cubes of papaya all over the bamboo, and then you have a wonderful skewer that you can then put in the animal's enclosure, which is going to be very, very different from I shredded some papaya and added it to the diet just to get the dietary enrichment. There's a bunch of different ways that you can change things up.
Mm. Dani, you agree? I mean, is there anything you wanted to add to
Yeah.
that?
No, I totally agree. And I don't see really anything wrong with doing things multiple days in a row, especially if you know that your bird really likes it. And you can use that as information to be like, oh, I know that this is a really high value reinforcer. And that can really come in handy if you ever run into issues with your birds too. So I think, it's great.
Absolutely. No, I like that. So let's see, what else have we got, Nick? We've got another clip.
Oh.
Go ahead, Dani. You can.
Okay, I wasn't sure if I should talk. So this is just our military macaw, Jolly. He was actually doing a nail trim training session on that table, and we kind of didn't set up the table as well as we maybe should have because he saw that piano from afar and walked right off the setup that we had going for his nail trims and just wanted to interact with it. And we thought it was the coolest thing, so we just started to reinforce it. And this is, again, going back to what I was saying earlier about empowering our birds to operate on their environment. This was something that we absolutely did not intend for this bird to interact with. He just wanted to, and we just went with it. And we ended up training a bird to play the piano. And I think that's the coolest thing. And, there's definitely some training involved here, but this is so enriching for him. There's some tactile enrichment going on, auditory enrichment. He is just having the time of his life.
I love this because it's very obvious that the bird is. So Emily, nice job. Thank you for working with that bird and showing that to us. And just you can see the enthusiasm that's happening there. It's just I want to do this, and it's just great. I love this. So it's tactile, it's auditory, it's social. It falls in all those categories, and it's definitely building that relationship.
And it was
the other nice
for us too. I mean,
I was just going to say
like
that.
A piano man. It was a show for us, honestly.
You can see the smile on Emily's face that it's like, this is just he's enjoying it just as much as Bird, and I think that's great.
Yeah.
So I love this tip. I think it's wonderful. All right,
Like
so
this right here, I think it's important to point out to people that for training, part of what birds learn is going to be in a social context. So that's part of why Robin and I have encouraged that if you're wanting to do training sessions with your bird, we recommend doing more sessions of shorter duration. Basically, you want to make sure that it stays fun for you and the bird. If you get to the point that you're stressed out because you're trying to make something happen and the bird isn't going along with it or they're not picking it up and you're getting frustrated, the animal you're working with will pick up on that. So, this is great because this is, Robin and I have talked about capturing behaviors, and this is a wonderful example of that. You said that the bird just went up and wanted to interact with this on his own. I don't think it would be very difficult at all to train him to, maybe learn to play, if not a full song, at least a couple note melody pretty consistently.
Oh yeah.
I think
Oh
so.
yeah.
So
We
we've
can
trained.
have fun with this.
Oh yeah. So Diane just commented she thinks we're all sitting here bobbing our heads up and down with the macaw, and we absolutely are. So Emily, not only are you a fabulous parrot trainer, but you have trained parrot lovers everywhere. So nice job. I'm really great. Um, all right. So as much as I love this one, we're going to move on to the next one. What have we got next, Nick? Okay. What are we seeing here, Dani?
Yeah, here we go. So, Jack, you'll love this. We've got some browse. So we have tons of bamboo trees planted all around the zoo, and all of our animals love their bamboo browse, and we just grow it and chop it down to use for enrichment for our animals. And so this is the indoor portion of our parakeet aviary, which is obviously a little bit more challenging to make enriching just because there aren't as many spaces where we can hang things. And so we had changed the branches that day and just decided to put some bamboo in there. And you can obviously see that it's encouraging so much behavior. The birds are just flying around onto the different branches. Some of the branches are wobbly and not super sturdy, and they like that. They like to hang from it, dangle, and they're obviously chewing on that browse. And we came in the next day and this was destroyed. They just had and it was so easy. It took us 2 seconds to put it up.
Nice. Browse is a go-to for if you're, running behind and you still have to do stuff. Browse is absolutely the go-to. Do you agree, Jack?
Yeah, I would say so. Bamboo, especially, is one of my favorites, but browse in general should definitely be something that is a part of your arsenal. And even if you are a single parrot owner and you have a small balcony, you can grow something that could be useful. You can grow things like gingers that aren't going to take up as much space. You can grow bamboo, most of which will grow well in a terracotta or a plastic pot. So even if you don't have the tropical climate that we typically have, you could still grow those things for use with your animals. And the other good thing about when you grow these plants yourself, then you have the validation, the confirmation that these items haven't been treated with insecticides, with anything that could be potentially problematic for your animals, because you have control over one more thing that they're getting. You can ensure that these items are safe. Bamboo in general for parrots, I have not yet met a parrot that doesn't like bamboo, and they like it in different ways. Some of them like to, I've had kayaks that like to just sit on it and bounce. Anyone who's not familiar with the energy level of kayaks, it is incredible, if not exhausting, but it's a lot of fun to watch. Here it looks like there's budgies and cockatiels.
Yes.
Am I seeing that right? Okay. Yeah, and both of those, in my experience, they like to just go through and they'll just pull all the leaves off because it's something fun to do.
Yep.
Absolutely. And
So
I think with And with bamboo too, you can use the bigger pieces. You know, if you've got, this is all the real small diameter, but if you've got the big bamboo growing around, it's nice because it has that natural shelf in it. So you can take sections of it and use it for bird, like I'm sure for Russell Crowe or birds that like to hide things. We've all had that bird that, you know, has to put things behind things and under things. And with the bamboo, it's got that natural shelf. And if you drill a hole, they can cache things inside and come back and get them later on.
Yeah,
So,
absolutely. And our primate department really goes nuts with the bamboo, doing it just like you said, Robin, and they fill it with jello. And our primates love that. So yeah, we can use it so many different ways.
very
Yeah, so
cool.
with something like that, I would say if you're wanting to get a plant to be a browse plant, look into the variety that you're getting because all different plants are going to grow to different heights. They're going to tolerate different climates. So find out what's going to work for your setting. I mean, there's clumping bamboos that are going to max out at 6 to 7 feet tall. You know, they're really small, compact dwarf varieties. I love how I can call it a dwarf variety at 7 feet tall. And then there's also going to be varieties of bamboo that are going to hit 20 to 30 feet tall, and they will have canes that are, you know, 3 to 4 inches in diameter and have the potential to be really great natural components of toys.
And I think too, you've got the one thing you do have to be careful with bamboo is that it is incredibly invasive. It spreads like nobody's business. So if you're going to plant it, just make sure that first of all, it's legal where you are because there are some places that don't allow you to plant bamboo because it is an invasive species, and it does take over your yard. So you just got to be careful if you're going to plant your own, and be careful if Jack and I have discussed this. Some of the ornamental bamboo that isn't actually bamboo is toxic. It's the heavenly bamboo.
I Nandina domestica. So
Right.
I don't remember what
Yeah.
it had like 7 different common names, but Nandina is what you will see it as. And it doesn't look like this. It has a completely different leaf structure. So I would always say check and double check and then check again if you're ever concerned about any of the items that you're giving your animals, just to make sure they're safe. Always err on the side of safety. I did put together a video on the High Redbird YouTube page with just considerations to make when picking out browse. But I think like you can see these budgies and these cockatiels are absolutely having a great time.
Yeah. I really like it. Okay, I think we have one more clip to look at. Maybe. Oh, we do. There we go. All right. What do we got here, Dani?
I'm like always excited to see which one comes next because I sent you guys a bunch of videos and I didn't know which ones you were going to use. So this is Pongo, our red-legged Sariema, and he is taking a dust bath. And this is our show arena where he is. And so he doesn't have this exact substrate in his exhibit. So this is great habitat enrichment for him. And he loved it. And we took him out of his crate. We brought him down here just for a training session. And this is the first thing he did. So once again, empowering our birds to operate on their environment and giving them different environments. So switching things up so that we see some of these natural behaviors. He will take dust baths up in his exhibit, but not instantly. Like you can see, he was just like, he starts moving around his feet right before he kind of commits to putting his chest down on the ground. And he loves that texture. And so he's playing around with it. And then he goes down and does that dust bath. And that's an important behavior too, because it helps them keep parasites off of their feathers. And we want to see that. And it's a great conversation topic for visitors too. If they come into the arena and see him doing this, it's such a great thing to talk about.
I just love this one because you can almost see the wheels turning as Pongo walks up to that spot and then it's almost like if you were testing ice, you know, you're like, oh, wait, okay. And then, all right, this is good. I'm going to do this. And then he commits, like you said. And I just think this one's great. And, you know, dust baths, different textures. We talk a lot about offering different textures to our birds. We've got a lot of people who have birds that overpreen. And if you can get them the different textures and different ways to interact with that environment, sometimes you can avoid some of that behavior. I love
Yeah.
this
Oh,
one.
absolutely.
Well, and I think we had a question somewhere earlier, but I didn't see it now. But obviously, you guys, so you're recording this now. You watch the animals when you're doing these things, but are there any special precautions you take or any things you do to ensure that the items that you are giving are safe for your animals?
So, yeah, obviously safety is a huge priority for all of the animals. And we are pretty fortunate at Southwick's where our president is also our vet. So, the main person that we have to go through to approve for some of our enrichment items understands and knows those precautions already. And so he can be like, well, we have to think about X, Y, and Z. Which is really beneficial for us, for the keepers, because he might be able to think of things that might be a safety issue that we weren't even aware of. So there definitely is that thing where you're gonna want to take some risks, but you have to be aware of the safety precautions. Like you definitely want to be one step ahead in thinking about what could happen. And then there are a lot of items that we give our birds that are like supervision only items. So we would never leave a specific item that we're nervous about that bird having in with them overnight. So we're pretty fortunate where our parrots are, where our crow and our kookaburra are. People are around in that barn all day. So we're watching how they're interacting with those items. We don't close the door and walk away after we give a bird an enrichment item, and particularly a new enrichment item. We're always really careful. So yeah, absolutely safety first. You definitely have to do your research before giving any animal a new item.
And so, we with the other half, and we've spent a lot of time on scheduling and categorizing and things like that. But the other half of tonight is about assessment, and safety to me is the first thing you look at when you're creating an assessment tool or when you're deciding what you're going to do. What So what do you assess for, Jack, at the farm when you start a new enrichment item? What are you assessing when you put that in?
So, like we just said, I would think safety is going to be the very first thing. Obviously, before we give an animal an item, we're going to look it over. We're going to make sure that there is nothing that should be problematic. That being said, that doesn't mean your animal will not find a new and inventive way to make something problematic. Sometimes I think that's their entire goal with the enrichment. So, with that observation, if we see, oh, hey, there's a really good risk of like a leg band getting caught, or something is breaking apart and is potentially more ingestible than we thought, we'll pull that item. We'll go, not scrap it entirely, but go back to the drawing board and say, what do we need to do to make this safe? Now, once we've done that, you definitely want to assess, is the animal getting value out of that item? Is there any kind of interaction at all? Sometimes you give an animal an item and it's like, okay, that's over there. I don't really care. Sometimes they're super excited about something. Sometimes they are terrified of something. So I would say knowing, does the animal interact with something, what kind of interaction it is, and how strong an interaction it is. Those are all going to be aspects that we look at.
Absolutely. And when I create an assessment tool for a facility, safety comes first, and obviously before, during, and after, because there are certain points too where enrichment can initially be safe. You put it in and it's, this is great. I checked it all out. I watched my animal with it. It was safe. But then after some use, it may not be safe anymore. And so you've got to assess that level of safety as well. So how durable is it, maybe, is what you want to assess. And then, is it being used? How is it being used? And sometimes avoidance is not necessarily, oh, we're done, take it out. It may be just, okay, so avoidance is enriching in some cases. And then if you've got a goal for it, is it meeting the goal that I initially set for this? And if not, what kind of behavior is it eliciting? So that's what I look for in assessment. Dani, do you guys have a tool that you use at the zoo to assess enrichment?
We don't have a tool. We do have a bit of a scale. So we kind of rate enrichment items on a scale of like 1 to 5, 1 being a not like didn't even interact with the item or maybe even had a fear response towards the item, which is obviously not something that we want, and 5 being that they interacted with the item for at least more than 20 minutes. So we use a little bit of a scale, and like I said, it's pretty nice with our parrots and our crow and our kookaburra, and especially right now in the winter, we're in the same room with them all day, so we don't have to sit in front of the exhibit or the cage and watch them interact with that item and write down exactly how long it takes. We're out and about doing our thing and peeking our eyes over here and there to see how they're interacting with the item. So that's kind of nice for us as well.
Very cool. And if so, what causes you to discontinue an item? Dani, Jack, whoever wants to. Do you have a criteria for discontinuing something at the farm, Jack?
So obviously the first item is going to be safety. If something is a notable safety concern and we can't come up with a way to fix it, there are so many different types of enrichment that if I can't offer one particular item, then it's not the end of the world if I can't use that. So a good example of that is I had a plastic puzzle feeder that it was a small cylinder. It had a screw-on lid. It had holes in it so I could put food items in there. And the animal is supposed to roll it around and food items fall out. Well, the problem is that my camels learned this is stupid. And if we just step on it, the entire thing will break. And then we can get all the food all at once. And so then that became okay, the first time it happened, is this a fluke? Do we just need to give this item, we get a new one? Do we need to do it just supervised and pull it? Well, at that point, the animals had taught themselves, no, if I just step on this, it breaks and I get all the food. So the interaction aspect there, the animals were just going to step on it and break it. That item isn't safe. So that one item we can't use anymore. Which is why I got to the point of, okay, well, I'm just going to build my own out of a 5-gallon bucket and a heavy duty lid. So you can always go back to the drawing board. Robin and I have both talked about scaling enrichment, but, you don't need to scrap an idea entirely, but maybe a particular item if it's not safe. Other things become unsafe with use. Probably the best example I can think of is cotton rope. When it's brand new, cotton rope is amazing. Birds love it. But as they're playing with it, you see it starts to fray. It starts to get pieces that are looking delicious and potentially ingestible. You might have pieces that could snag nails, that could snag leg bands, that could, get caught on beaks. So obviously all of those would be things you want to avoid. Now, in terms of if an animal is interested in something or not, I wouldn't say that I would discontinue an item for, if you first give it and they're super excited, and then as you continue to give it, they're less excited. I wouldn't discontinue an item, but I would either give a longer period before they get it again, or find a way to pair it with one other category, find something to do to make it a little bit more interesting or exciting. And I hope I did not take all of the answers and you guys can come up with something else to say there.
Dani,
I love everything
that sounds like a
said. Yeah, no, I was going to say, like, safety, like you said, is a big one. For me, though, and for especially our parrots, I sometimes see them interacting with enrichment inappropriately. We can see some self-stimulating behaviors around springtime. that cause behavior issues. And so we absolutely, for a lot of our birds, like for some of our smaller birds, no large boxes that are going to look like nest cavities if we don't want them breeding. We limit the amount of paper. I mean, we line the bottom of the cages with paper. And if they don't have a grate above that paper, some of like our hybrid macaws will go down there and they'll start nesting and ripping up the paper and getting underneath there. And it is a natural behavior, but it causes problem behaviors, and it causes lots of even arguments between the two of them sometimes too. So definitely, if we see some of those self-stimulating behaviors, I see a lot of our birds, if an enrichment item that they have been interacting with for a while, but maybe it's been in there too long, I start to see them resting those items on their back. And they're getting that stimulation of, oh, this is a mate, and I'm gonna I'm gonna scratch my head while this item rests on my back, and we definitely don't want to be eliciting those sexual responses, because it does make our lives a lot more difficult when it comes to handling them. So definitely, I would say that is right now specifically the moments when we say, okay, this enrichment item needs to come out, or we need to eliminate paper for our Harlequin macaw. So you guys are laughing, but no, I know you know what I mean.
I am going to
when
say that after this week, this makes things better.
I think it's when they start lighting up those little birdie cigarettes, they know you've got a problem, right? When they pull out the cigarette and they're smoking away, and we talk to people all the time. I have people all the time say, oh, my bird's hormonal and he started biting, and yet absolutely. But there are ways to get around that. And at this time of year, you don't offer the boxes, you don't offer the shreddables as much. And it all ties together. It's that behavior, training, enrichment, they all impact one another. And then I find that we sometimes have people who step back and go, I don't know why this is happening. We'll take a look. Let's look at what you're offering. Let's look at what it's eliciting, and then we'll talk about how we can change it or fix it. I think you.
I think it's time to bring in our catchphrase, which has basically been our catchphrase for this entire series. That it really is a study of one, and you need to make your decisions for how you enrich your animals and what you provide them based on your individual situation, because your bird is an individual, that species is an individual, your household or your facility or wherever that bird is held. There we go. I was like, is holded. That's not the word I want. Is held. Those are all going to be. I'm still laughing about the last thing. All of those are going to be unique.
Did you see so Dani, you've got poor Diane in Long Island losing her mind, that when her bird is on her mom, he's scratching his head, and it's a mating response. Scratching a bird's head is not always a mating response, Diane. It's okay. We're not, going to hold you responsible for creating this horrible situation. It's the kind of slow scratch. Diane, come on, the scratch I'm describing. It's not just the scratch of the head. Okay. So, all right. We're going to move on at this point, because we're still PG now. But so we've gone a little bit over time tonight, but I have a couple of questions I want to ask. So, Dani, what's your favorite avian enrichment of all time?
That I've made or that I've seen?
That you've either offered or that you've seen offered. Either way.
Well, I mean, we have a lot of fun with the parakeets, and we didn't get to show all the stuff that we did with them, but we create these like really epic vine balls for our parakeets as well. And they're just kind of like these intertwined vines that we piece together, and it encourages this amazing social flock. I mean, we have about 160 parakeets, and we make pretty big vine balls, and like more than half of the birds can fit on this one vine ball. And it's so fun. I mean, we hang it from a piece of wire. It moves a little bit. It literally moves with the wind. And it's like, it looks pretty in our aviary. I really like the stuff that we can do with vine. And we also, a lot of our primate keepers make vine balls for some of our smaller primates too, like our tamarins and our marmosets, and they have a really good time with that too. So something as simple as bittersweet vine that grows in your backyard, you can clip down and make really cool things with. So I was just like the first thing that came to mind. So I don't know if that's my favorite, but I think it speaks volumes.
I definitely love the vine stuff, and you can do so much with it. And the only thing I caution people is if they're going to buy vine at like a craft store or somewhere like that, make sure it's not shiny, because that just means that it's got some kind of treatment on it. But vine, you can do tons of stuff with vine. I mean, and it's so easily pliable when you cut it, and then you just let it dry out, and it's just great. So Jack, do you have a favorite enrichment item?
So my favorite enrichment, which is probably an indication that I can be a little bit lazy at times, I love browse piles, or brush piles. So when you hit the autumn and all of the trees around are shedding their leaves, and obviously if the leaves are going to fall in the animal enclosure, you have to make sure that those are all leaves that are safe to fall in an animal enclosure. Just want to point that out. When you rake up those items, and then you can add a little bit of food, you can add, pellets, mixed seed, anything like that to just a pile of leaves, or just let the animals interact with a pile of leaves. And sometimes it is some of the most fun you will see. And a lot of people, okay, Robin already called me old, so I'll go with it. When I first started in professional animal care, it was not understood that every animal benefited from enrichment. It was, some parrots definitely need it, but, most birds aren't going to benefit from it. And you would see things like pheasants, which are not known for their intellect, but something like a brush pile, they're going to have a ton of fun with. They're going to look for maybe insects if you add those to that. If you add mixed seed, all kinds of birds are going to interact with that, because looking for food that is hidden under leaves is about as natural a behavior as you can get.
It's true. And those are the kind of moments that I like when you see, because sometimes enrichment just happens. Sometimes it's, with Pongo, with the duck bathing, and it's not always something that you expect or that you set up. Those are my favorite kind of enrichment moments. Or when you see the aha moment, when you offer a foraging activity and a bird is just, this is where this is, and this is the coolest thing ever. Those are the kind of experiences I like to present. And, and I think it just takes that little bit of creativity. And we've seen, Dani, I don't know how many of the live streams you've seen, but we're really finding that people are super creative at home. They're doing great jobs with their birds, and they're really offering some exciting things. So I hope people keep sharing those ideas, and knowing that all the birds that we care for, all the animals that we care for, from finch to macaw to, the smallest primate to the great apes, all of them need some form of enrichment. And, Jack mentioned the camels, and I know, I think that's a camel thing, Jack, because we did some enrichment for camels in Boston at the Franklin Park Zoo. And we created this wonderful puzzle feeder that had a spinner inside. I think, I had shared this idea with Jack for his camels. And the camels liked it at first, and they were like, oh yeah, I'll use my tongue and I'll turn this little wheel. And then all of a sudden it was like, but wait, if I just throw it on the ground, I can get everything that's inside. So, it's kind of that short attention span theater mentality. Some of our birds are just like, oh yeah, I'm only going to work at this for a little bit. And then others are like, oh, I'll work on this for 20 minutes and it's the greatest thing ever.
Well, and I think you need to sometimes take a step back, because we'll make something and we'll think, oh, this is excellent because this bird is going to have to work for 20 to 30 minutes to solve this. And if they go in 2 minutes and they break it, but they get all the food out of it, in their mind, they solved it. They solved it incredibly quickly, incredibly well. And, you know, I've known people with their parrots where they'll give them all of these shreddable things on, you know, a thin piece of rope. And the bird has learned, I don't have to go through and shred all of those items. I just go to the top of that and I chew through the rope, and then everything falls to the ground, and I won.
Yeah, absolutely. And so it's, and I think, you know, we've all kind of mentioned this, and it's a good point that it's not always what you expect. It's not always, you know, the outcome that you anticipated or the length of time that you anticipated it would take. So you just got to be flexible with that. Creating a schedule will help you put things in some order, be organized a little bit, not fall into the favorites trap. But I think, you know, at home, creating a simple schedule and just, you know, being cognizant of whether you're offering the same things over and over again. And as far as assessing them is concerned, making sure they're safe, making sure that, you know, you've got some goal that you want to work towards, and how are they being used. And I think it's not rocket science, rocket surgery. It can be, you know, but it's something to keep in mind when you're creating your program at home. So we have a trivia question this week. And I'm going to rely on Nick to tell me who answers first. And oh, wait, I just got to say, Melissa just made a comment that she got new shoes and Zorro loved them. So who doesn't love a good pair of new shoes? I mean, really, but that's all. I agree. I saw the picture too. So, all right, here's our trivia question. And the prize for this week's trivia question is a Phoenix Forager. It's a new toy that we just put up on the website today. It's on a refillable skewer, a stainless steel skewer. It's got vine balls. There's your vine balls, Dani. And birch and leather, just all kinds of fun stuff. So the trivia question for this week is, what is the most important thing to assess when assessing an enrichment opportunity? So yeah, Dani, I might be able to send you a Phoenix Forager anyway, as a thank you for spending time with us tonight.
Oh, well, I would do this anytime. You know that. This was so much fun. But I do know some birds that would have so much fun with that.
It looks like we have an answer. Nick, who came in? The answer is safety. So Nick, who came in first with safety? Kimberly Woodward. Congratulations, Kimberly.
Mom,
if you
that is literally my
mom. Kimberly, we were going to send you guys one anyway. Oh, it's your mom?
That's my
Is that
mother.
Mom? Yes. No, Mom was listening. Don't you love it? That's awesome. And you know, we got some other answers too, like there. Congratulations, Kimberly. Dani, if you can give me Kimberly's address, we'll you know, after the live stream, we will get that to you guys. Very cool. So congratulations. Is that your wedding picture, Dani?
Yeah.
No, is it?
Me, my mom, my sister. Yeah.
Oh, look at how pretty she looked. Dani's a newlywed, fairly newlywed, right?
Yeah.
So,
yeah. Yes, I am.
Congratulations. All right. So, Jack, we have an announcement for NPRPF.
Yes. So, actually, we're probably going to have two in this one. So, first of all, we wanted to let you guys know, since we did not have Parrot Festival in person this year, which we typically do the last full weekend in January, we are continuing our virtual learning series for the National Parrot Rescue and Preservation Foundation. So we are doing a different session on the third Saturday of every single month. So we have a session tomorrow, which registration is still open for. It is Care of Geriatric Parrots with Dr. Sharman Hoppus. So that should be a great opportunity. And I do also want to announce, since we've talked a little bit about it today, For March, we are going to have April Blazik doing a session on planting for your parents. So that one's going to cover a variety of different things that you can have for dietary enrichment, just enrichment, and all sorts of things in between. Now, if you would like to find out more about those, you can, of course, go to visit the Parrot Festival Facebook page. All of the information will be posted there, and you can go to register for those sessions at nprpf.wildapricot.org.
All right. And I know that registration for tomorrow's session with Dr. Hoppus is available until midnight tonight. So correct? Yes.
Should be.
Okay. All right. And so I think that's going to be a great one. Dr. Hoppus is always wonderful to listen to. And then April and March, that's confusing. April Blazic will be speaking in March. And April is just a wealth of information about plantings, and she fascinates me because I kill things when they grow. I'm not good at it. So I listen to April and go, oh, someday I can do that. But it's definitely worth listening to. And let's see what else we've got going on. We've got, as usual, all of these will be recorded and they'll be on the High Redbird YouTube channel. No, playlist. Yes. And then they'll be on the Leather Elves page on Facebook.
Channel and playlist. If you want to just go look through the variety of videos, they're all there, but they're also compiled onto a playlist of just these Friday Night Flock Talks.
Okay. And then I definitely want to thank Dani. And if anybody gets a chance and they're in Massachusetts, when things open up a bit, Southwick is a fantastic zoo. It's very comfortable. It's very family friendly. It's small enough that you're not overwhelmed, but it's big enough that you get to see all cool stuff. I was looking at some of my pictures from when I did my visit there with you guys, and it amazes me what you guys do in such a small, in a smaller setting. I mean, it's wonderfully family run. That's another thing, that's really neat about it. And I know, it's been in the same family for many, many years from the beginning, right?
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
So
yeah,
it's definitely worth going. And then you can go and see Dani's bird show too. That's kind of exciting. When do you start bird shows up again?
So usually our bird shows start in Mother's Day weekend. So usually in May. We weren't able to do them until about July last year, just because of COVID restrictions. So we're just going to go with the flow this year and see what we're allowed to do. We have to take a look at the state mandates when things get closer, but we will be able to do some form of presentations in our arena since it's nice and big. We can socially distance people, which is always great. And yeah, our shows are just a lot of fun. You'll learn a lot about birds. You'll learn a lot about parrots. You can come meet the one and only Russell Crowe, and I promise it'll be a good time.
Very cool. And Jack, what about you guys? Well, obviously we're a little setback this week, but out at the farm, when are we looking at getting out to the farm again?
We will hopefully be opening next weekend because tomorrow isn't happening. We were supposed to open this weekend. But yeah, no. So I think we're all just having to sort of go with what life throws at us. And, it sort of drives home the point of enrichment that we try to, convey to people with their pets that, hey, we've had a lot of things thrown at us and we've gotten that it's like, yeah, we're going with that. We're rolling with it. Like, it's not necessarily scary anymore. It's just like, oh, this is our challenge for today. Okay.
You're going to get it done though. Thank you. Chris says, he's going to look at doing an enrichment wheel and how to do things better. And yes, Chris, we will see you on the next show. Next week's topic is approximations and getting started with target training. I know. I love target training. It's one of my favorite things. Yes?
You need a target?
Wait. Hold on. I have a target stick.
Do you need 2 targets? Do you need 3
I have
targets?
2. Yeah, you just got, all you need is a finger or a popsicle
Yeah,
stick.
I've got a target stick. Danny's right.
Yeah.
All right, guys. So next week we're going to talk about approximations and getting started with target training. It's one of the easiest ways to help move an animal to station, and then we move on to station training from target training. So we're going to get started with that next week. Dani, thank you again so much. It's been a pleasure. And you are
so much fun. Thank you.
I think we need to have Dani back again, Jack. I think this would be fun.
Yeah.
So yeah, we will definitely do this. So thank you guys, and we will see everyone next week. As usual, it'll be 7:00 on the Leather Elves Facebook page, 7 p.m. Eastern. And we look forward to seeing you then. Take care, everyone. Bye-bye.
I do need to say thank you to my
everyone.
Patreon
Thank
patrons for
you.
helping to make these videos possible. You can find out more by visiting Hi Redbird on Patreon or clicking the link in the description section down below if you would like more information. Thanks!